Made possible through support from ARC Thrift Stores, CCDC, Colorado Cross Disability Coalition, Developmental Pathways, PASCO, Personal Assistance Services of Colorado, and the ARC of Aurora. A THINK+change training.
Hello, everybody. We are here with another THINK+change episode on school transitions. We are advocates with the ARC of Aurora, Callie Johnson, Jeff Fernangel, and Petrie Brill, here to take you through today's topic, which is secondary to transitions and even beyond that. So, Callie, I think you're going to start us off today, yeah?
Yeah, so the big kickoff in this transition is what's called a Transition Iep. And a Transition Iep is similar to every other IEP that you've completed, but the big difference is that this one is looking beyond school. And this typically gets started when your student is in 9th grade, and it has to be completed, finished, 100% done by the time they're 16. So as a part of this Transition IEP, you'll see what's called a transition assessment. And these are really fun. They're probably one of the only assessments I would describe as fun, but from every area, you can see, what does your child do out in the community? What are they like with their friends at home? What are they like with their teachers at school? You get to put your input in as a parent. What supports will I need to help them be successful? What does my child's success look like in my mind? A transition assessment should pull from every aspect of your child's life, put them all together, and come up with a plan for what your child wants, what they'll need to get there, and how those supports are going to be provided. When it's done, you should be able to look at it and feel very confident that your child has a group of people supporting them as they move on past school.
Cool.
So just one point of clarification, Callie, I have a question about, you said that the Transition IEP has to be completed by 16, but that doesn't mean that there can be changes to the fundamental pieces of the IEP through the rest of high school, right?
That's a great question, Petrie. Yeah, so when I say completed, it is kind of, I guess, think of it like a rough draft for that next year. So this should be strong enough to get someone through a year. But as always, if you look at it and see something that doesn't fly, reach out to your case manager and know that you have every right to make amendments on that. Thanks for pointing that out, Petrie.
Yeah.
And I was going to kind of piggyback off of what she was talking about, and there is schooling offered in between the ages of 19 and 21. So if you're eligible for special education, you can receive school up until you turn 22 years old. Once you turn 22, though, you're no longer eligible for these services. But what does it really look like? Well, I'm going to tell you this. We don't want to start at age 18 and a half trying to figure out what schooling between 19 and 21 looks like. That transition IEP piece that Callie was talking about, that's where we want to start engaging in the conversation. And the IEP team is going to base the needs of the student on their whatever they want to do for transition. So as the transition IEP develops through the years, it's going to have a plan for what happens after age 18, what happens in between 19 and 21. And if a student graduates with their class on time and they meet all the requirements, they can get into the transition program, but they have to let the school hold their diploma. They get their diploma, but the school holds on to it. They could still do what they call a social graduation, which, you know, they march in and with the crew and they throw their caps in the air. They do everything everyone else does. They can even get a picture of them with their diploma. It's just the school has to hold on to the diploma until they complete their services. And transition is part of those services. And the transition program is going to be mostly based on community. It's really going to try to develop their skills to be an adult and function and have independent skills in the world after high school.
Can I ask a question really quickly?
Sure.
You said that you have the availability up until you turn 22. What if someone at the age of 20 decides they no longer want to access transitions? Is that okay?
Right. You can opt out whenever you want. And really a true successful transition program should be slowly phasing them out into whatever their life is going to look like afterwards. So you might start off doing transition 4 days a week, Then you might end up doing it for 3 days. And then you might get a job and just spend 2 days a week for transition and help support your job. And the transition schooling is also trying to develop those linkages to adult services, whether that's long-term supports, social security, guardianship, connecting to the CCB, which developmental pathways is typically the one in Aurora.
Okay.
So
That's really interesting.
more I could say about it, but if you want to learn more, you can always talk to your ARC advocate or reach out to your local chapter.
Yeah. I think some similarities, just really quickly, in terms of transitions, you still have an IEP, you still have a case manager, so you still will have all of that support as you're going through the program. Things a little differently that Jeff pretty much touched on. You can kind of set your own schedule. You don't have to go 5 days a week. Typically, it's not a full day. A lot of your transitions will take place out in the community so that you have an opportunity to implement the skill sets and the social skills that your transitions is preparing you for when you go to a job or the real world. So like Jeff said, there's a lot more to talk about. We're always happy to chat with you offline. That is the end of today's episode, so we'll wrap it up here. Thank you for spending some time with us. Stay tuned for more Think Change trainings. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.
Think Change. Talks, trainings, and tools to help in your work for or with people with intellectual and other developmental disabilities. Learn more at www.thinkchange.training.